The desert sun blazed mercilessly across the barren landscape of the training facility in Nevada. Sand whipped through the air as a convoy of military vehicles approached the remote outpost. Inside the lead Humvee, 17-year-old Marcus Chun adjusted his military-issued cap and tried to calm his racing heart. He had dreamed of this moment for years, but now that it was here, the weight of expectation felt heavier than his full gear pack. Marcus wasn't your typical teenager. While his classmates back in Colorado were worried about prom dates and college applications, he had spent the last 4 years perfecting his marksmanship skills at local shooting ranges and youth competitions. His father, a retired Marine Corps sniper instructor, had recognized his son's natural talent early on and had trained him rigorously. What started as weekend father-son bonding had evolved into something extraordinary. The vehicle came to a stop outside a series of concrete buildings that seemed to shimmer in the heat. As Marcus stepped out, he was immediately struck by the silence. This wasn't like the busy military bases he had visited before. This place had an air of secrecy, of important missions being planned and executed by the most elite soldiers in the world. "Chun, Marcus." A gravelly voice called out from behind him. Marcus turned to see a tall, weathered man in desert camouflage approaching. The man's uniform bore no visible rank insignia, but everything about his bearing screamed authority. His eyes were the color of steel, and they seemed to look right through Marcus as they shook hands. "I'm Commander Sullivan. Welcome to Advanced Reconnaissance Training Facility 7. The commander's handshake was firm, testing. "I have to admit, when I received your application and saw your age, I thought someone was playing a practical joke on me." Marcus straightened his shoulders. "No, sir. I understand this is unusual, but my scores speak for themselves." Commander Sullivan nodded slowly. "Indeed they do. A perfect score in every marksmanship category we test. Unprecedented accuracy in long-range targeting. Your father's recommendation carries weight here, son. But scores on paper are different from performance under pressure." The commander gestured toward the buildings. "You're here for a 2-week evaluation program. If you prove yourself, you'll be recommended for advanced training with some of the finest marksmen in our military. If you don't," he paused, studying Marcus's face. "Well, let's just say this opportunity doesn't come twice." As they walked toward the main facility, Marcus caught glimpses of other trainees through windows and doorways. They were all significantly older than him, most appearing to be in their 20s or 30s. Many had the hardened look of soldiers who had already seen combat. He wondered what they would think when they saw him. "Your bunkhouse is number 7, Commander Sullivan said, handing Marcus a key. "You'll be sharing with 3 other candidates. Dinner is at 1800 hours. Training begins at 0500 tomorrow." He started to walk away, then turned back. "A word of advice, Chun. Age might get you noticed here, but only skill will earn you respect. These men have been training for this their entire adult lives. Don't expect any special treatment because you're young." Marcus's quarters were spartanly furnished with for military cots, for lockers, and little else. He was the first to arrive, so he chose a bunk near the window and began unpacking his gear. He had packed light, knowing that most equipment would be provided, but he had brought his father's old spotting scope and a few personal items that reminded him of home. As he was organizing his locker, the door opened and 3 men entered. The first was a broad-shouldered man with sandy hair who looked to be in his late 20s. His name tag read Rodriguez. Behind him came 2 others, Thompson, a tall, lean man with intelligent eyes, and Kim, a compact, muscular soldier with calloused hands that spoke of years of weapons training. Well, Rodriguez said, taking in Marcus's appearance. "Looks like they're recruiting from high schools now." Marcus stood and extended his hand. "Marcus Chun, pleased to meet you." Rodriguez looked at the outstretched hand for a moment before shaking it. "Rodriguez, been doing this for 8 years. You sure you're in the right place, kid?" "I'm sure," Marcus replied evenly. Thompson stepped forward, his expression more neutral. "What's your background, Chun?" "Civilian training, mostly. Some competition shooting. My father was a Marine sniper instructor." Kim nodded appreciatively. "Good foundation. Competition shooting teaches discipline. But this," he gestured around them, "this is different. You'll be shooting at targets that shoot back. The conversation was interrupted by the sound of a whistle echoing across the compound. Rodriguez checked his watch. Chow time. Hope you're ready for military cuisine, kid. The mess hall was filled with about 40 candidates, all seated at long metal tables. Marcus noticed immediately that he was by far the youngest person in the room. Conversations quieted as he passed with his tray, and he could feel dozens of eyes following his movements. He sat with his bunkmates, trying to appear more confident than he felt. During the meal, Rodriguez regaled them with stories from previous training exercises. He spoke of 12-mile marches in full gear, of shooting competitions where missing a target by an inch meant doing extra duties for a week, of psychological pressure tests designed to break even the strongest candidates. Last year, Rodriguez said between bites of what the military generously called beef stew, they brought in a hotshot from the police academy. Guy was 25, had won every civilian marksmanship award you could think of, lasted 4 days before he washed out. Marcus listened quietly, absorbing every detail. He understood that Rodriguez was trying to intimidate him, but he also recognized valuable intelligence when he heard it. Every story contained clues about what to expect, what to prepare for. After dinner, as they walked back to their quarters, Thompson fell into step beside Marcus. "Don't let Rodriguez get to you," he said quietly. "He's actually a good soldier, but he has a thing about proving himself to the instructors. Thinks putting down the competition makes him look better." "I appreciate the advice," Marcus replied. "Your father really trained you?" Marcus nodded. "Every weekend for 4 years. Started when I was 13. Thompson whistled softly. "That's dedication. From both of you." He paused. "Look, kid, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. The next 2 weeks are going to test everything you think you know about yourself. Physical endurance, mental toughness, technical skill. They're going to push you until you break. And then, they're going to push you further." That night, as Marcus lay in his bunk listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the desert and the quiet breathing of his bunkmates, he thought about his father's words from their last training session together. "Son," his father had said, "talent will get you noticed, but character will determine how far you go. When things get tough out there, remember that you belong wherever your skills can take you. Age is just a number. Precision is eternal." Marcus closed his eyes and began the mental visualization exercises his father had taught him. He pictured himself on a rifle range, breathing steadily, feeling the weight of the weapon in his hands, aligning the crosshairs perfectly with distant targets. In his mind, every shot was perfect, every breath controlled, every heartbeat measured. Tomorrow would bring his first real test. In a few hours, he would find out if 4 years of intensive training and natural talent were enough to compete with men who had dedicated their adult lives to becoming the military's elite marksmen. The thought both thrilled and terrified him. Outside his window, the desert night was crystal clear, with stars visible in a way they never were back home in the city. Somewhere in that vast darkness were ranges and obstacles and challenges that would determine his future. Marcus Chun, 17 years old and determined to prove himself, finally drifted off to sleep with the sound of wind across sand serving as his lullaby. The last thing he thought before sleep took him was a promise to himself. Whatever tomorrow brought, he would meet it with the precision and dedication his father had instilled in him. Age might make him different, but skill would make him equal. And if he was truly as good as his scores suggested, it might make him exceptional. The alarm pierced through the desert dawn at exactly 0500 hours, jolting Marcus from a dream about home. Around him, his bunkmates moved with practiced efficiency, transforming from sleeping soldiers to mission-ready operators in minutes. Marcus struggled to match their pace, fumbling with his gear in the pre-dawn darkness. "Move it, Chun," Rodriguez barked, already fully dressed and checking his equipment. "First rule here, if you're not early, you're late. If you're late, you're gone." Marcus pulled on his boots and grabbed his gear, following the others outside into the crisp morning air. The temperature had dropped dramatically overnight, and his breath formed small clouds as he jogged toward the assembly area. 40 candidates stood in formation as Commander Sullivan and 2 other instructors approached. "Good morning, gentlemen." Commander Sullivan's voice carried easily across the silent group. "Today begins your real education. Everything you think you know about marksmanship is about to be tested, challenged, and hopefully improved. He gestured toward a series of vehicles parked nearby. You'll be transported to Range Complex Alpha, where you'll undergo your initial evaluation. This is not a competition between you and your fellow candidates. This is an assessment of your individual capabilities under controlled conditions. The instructor beside Sullivan, a compact man with the weathered look of someone who had spent decades in the field, stepped forward. I'm Master Sergeant Williams. I've been training snipers for 15 years. I've seen hotshots, naturals, and everything in between. What I'm looking for isn't just accuracy. I'm looking for consistency, adaptability, and performance under pressure. Marcus climbed into one of the transport vehicles with his bunkmates and several other candidates. As they drove deeper into the training complex, he caught his first glimpse of the ranges where he would be tested. They were unlike anything he had ever seen, even more sophisticated than the facilities his father had described from his military days. Range Complex Alpha consisted of multiple shooting positions at varying elevations, with targets placed at distances ranging from 200 to 1,500 meters. Some targets were stationary, others moved along predetermined tracks, and a few appeared to be interactive, capable of simulating return fire with harmless laser systems. The candidates were divided into groups of 8 for the initial assessment. Marcus found himself grouped with Rodriguez, Thompson, Kim, and, for others he hadn't met. Their first challenge was a basic marksmanship test, 10 shots at stationary targets from 300 meters, using standard military rifles. As they approached the firing line, Master Sergeant Williams handed each candidate a weapon and ammunition. You have 20 minutes to familiarize yourselves with your rifle. Then, we begin. No practice shots, no warm-ups. This is your baseline assessment. Marcus accepted his rifle, a military-grade precision weapon he had never used before. He spent the allotted time checking the action, testing the trigger pull, and adjusting the scope to his preferences. Around him, the other candidates did the same, their movements efficient and professional. "Chun," Williams called out as Marcus settled into his shooting position. "You're 17 years old." It wasn't a question, and every head on the firing line turned toward Marcus. He could feel the weight of their attention, the mixture of curiosity and skepticism. "Yes, sir. Tell me why you're here." Marcus thought carefully before answering. "Because I can shoot, sir." Williams nodded slowly. "We'll see. Begin when ready." Marcus settled behind his rifle, controlling his breathing as his father had taught him. The 300-meter target seemed closer than many he had practiced on during his civilian training. He aligned the crosshairs, feeling the familiar calm that always descended when he was behind a scope. His first shot rang out, followed quickly by 9 more in steady succession. Through his scope, he could see the tight grouping of holes in the target's center ring. Every shot had found its mark within a circle smaller than a quarter. "Cease fire," Williams commanded. "Weapons safe. Stand back from the firing line." As range personnel moved downrange to score the targets, Marcus could hear murmured conversations among the other candidates. Through his peripheral vision, he saw Rodriguez shaking his head, while Thompson wore a slight smile. When the scores were announced, Marcus had achieved a perfect score, 10 shots, 10 bullseyes, with a group measurement that impressed even the instructors. Several other candidates had also shot well, but none had matched his precision. "Adequate shooting, gentlemen," Williams announced. "Now we move to something more challenging." The next exercise took place at a range designed to simulate urban environments. Targets were placed at various distances and angles, some partially concealed behind barriers or positioned to require shots through narrow windows. Candidates would move through the course individually, engaging targets as they appeared. Marcus watched as the first few candidates navigated the course. Each took between 5 and 8 minutes to complete all targets, with varying degrees of accuracy. When his turn came, Williams handed him a different rifle, one with a more powerful scope designed for longer-range work. "Time starts when you cross that line," Williams indicated a painted mark on the ground. "Engage all targets as efficiently as possible. You'll be scored on speed and accuracy combined." Marcus crossed the line and immediately began scanning for targets. His training with his father had included similar exercises, though never with this level of complexity. He spotted the first target, a silhouette positioned 400 meters away and partially concealed behind a concrete barrier. The shot was clean, center mass. Marcus moved to the next position without waiting to confirm the hit, trusting his training and instincts. The second target required a more challenging shot through a narrow opening at 600 meters. He settled quickly, controlled his breathing, and fired. As he progressed through the course, Marcus fell into a rhythm he had developed during countless hours of practice. Each target presented a new puzzle to solve: wind calculations, elevation adjustments, timing for moving targets. His mind worked through the variables automatically while his body maintained the steady, consistent form his father had drilled into him. The final target was the most challenging, a moving silhouette at 800 meters, traveling across his field of view at a steady pace. Marcus tracked it through his scope, calculating the lead time needed to intercept its movement. He exhaled slowly and squeezed the trigger. "Time," Williams called out. Marcus had completed the course in 4 minutes and 37 seconds. As the targets were checked, each had been hit with precision that drew nods of approval from the observing instructors. His time was nearly 2 minutes faster than the previous best, with perfect accuracy. As the morning progressed, additional exercises tested different aspects of marksmanship, shooting from awkward positions, engaging multiple targets rapidly, and performing under artificially induced stress. In each case, Marcus performed at or above the level of candidates with years more experience. During the lunch break, Thompson approached Marcus as he sat alone reviewing his performance notes. "Mind if I sit?" Thompson asked. "Please do." Thompson was quiet for a moment, studying Marcus with an expression of professional curiosity. "I've been doing this for 6 years," he said finally. "Came here straight from the Rangers. I've trained with some exceptional shooters." Marcus waited, sensing there was more coming. "What you did out there this morning," Thompson continued, "that wasn't beginner's luck. That was years of quality training combined with natural ability. Your father must be one hell of an instructor." "He is," Marcus agreed. "But he also always told me that individual training only goes so far. Real skill develops when you're challenged by people better than you." Thompson smiled. "Smart man. And humble kid." He paused. "Rodriguez is having a hard time with this. He's been working toward this opportunity for 3 years. Seeing someone half his age outshoot him on the first day is tough to swallow." Marcus glanced across the mess hall where Rodriguez sat with several other candidates, his body language tense and his expression dark. "I'm not here to make enemies," Marcus said quietly. "Good attitude. But you should know that some of these guys are going to see you as a threat, regardless of your intentions. Success here means potential advancement to elite units, career-making opportunities. They're not going to hand that over gracefully to a teenager." That afternoon brought long-range shooting exercises at distances up to 1,200 meters. The wind had picked up, adding another variable to an already challenging situation. Candidates worked in pairs, with one acting as spotter while the other engaged targets. Marcus was paired with Kim, who proved to be an excellent spotter with years of experience reading wind and weather conditions. Their partnership was immediately effective, with Kim providing precise information about environmental factors while Marcus translated that data into successful shots. "Wind from the southwest at 8 miles per hour," Kim reported through their shared headset. "Temperature rising, creating slight upward thermal drift." Marcus made the adjustments and fired. The target, a steel plate positioned 1,000 meters away, rang with the impact of his bullet. "Good shot." Next target, 11 o'clock, 1,200 meters, elevated position. The afternoon continued with similar success. Marcus and Kim worked together seamlessly, achieving hit rates that impressed both instructors and fellow candidates. When they switched positions and Kim took the rifle, Marcus found that his civilian training had given him solid fundamentals in spotting and environmental reading as well. As the day concluded, Master Sergeant Williams called the candidates together for debriefing. "Today's performance has been noted and evaluated," he announced. "Some of you exceeded expectations, others met them, and a few fell short." His gaze swept across the group. "Tomorrow we begin team exercises and stress training. Individual skill is important, but in the field, you'll never operate alone. Your ability to work effectively with others under pressure is equally critical. He dismissed the group, but, as Marcus gathered his gear, Williams approached him privately. Chewing a word, Marcus followed the instructor away from the others. Your performance today was exceptional, Williams said directly. But, I need you to understand something. The other candidates are watching you now. Some with respect, others with resentment. How you handle that attention will determine whether you succeed here or wash out despite your shooting ability. What do you recommend, sir? Williams considered the question. Be confident, but not arrogant. Help others when you can, but don't assume they want your help. And remember that leadership isn't about being the best at everything. It's about making everyone around you better. That evening, as Marcus cleaned his rifle in the equipment bay, he reflected on his first day. He had proven to himself and others that he could compete at this level. But Williams's warning echoed in his mind. Technical skill had gotten him here, but interpersonal challenges lay ahead that would test him in ways his father hadn't prepared him for. Rodriguez appeared in the doorway of the equipment bay, his expression unreadable. Nice shooting today, kid, Rodriguez said, though his tone suggested the compliment came with difficulty. Thank you. I learned a lot watching everyone else too. Rodriguez nodded slowly. Tomorrow's going to be different. Team exercises, stress situations, real pressure. Individual accuracy is just the starting point. Marcus looked up from his rifle cleaning. Any advice? For a moment, Rodriguez's competitive mask slipped, revealing something that might have been respect. Yeah, don't try to be the hero. Even if you can make the shot, if it's not your assigned responsibility, trust your teammates to handle it. That's harder than it sounds when you know you could do it better. After Rodriguez left, Marcus finished his equipment maintenance and prepared for another night in the desert. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but today had proven something important. His father's training and his own dedication had prepared him for this level of competition. As he lay in his bunk, Marcus thought about Williams's words regarding leadership and teamwork. Individual excellence had brought him here, but success would require learning to be part of something larger than himself. The transition from lone marksman to team member would be his greatest challenge yet. The second week of training began with an announcement that changed everything. Commander Sullivan stood before the remaining 32 candidates, having already dismissed 8 who failed to meet the program's demanding standards. Gentlemen, you've proven your individual capabilities, Sullivan began, his steel-gray eyes scanning the assembled group. This week, you'll be tested in realistic combat scenarios. You'll work in 4-man teams, operating in simulated hostile territory with live-fire exercises and real-world mission objectives. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. Everything up to this point had been preparation for this moment. Each team will include a team leader, primary sniper, spotter, and communications specialist, Sullivan continued. Team assignments are posted on the bulletin board. Your first mission briefing is at 1400 hours. The crowd of candidates surged toward the bulletin board. Marcus pushed through until he could see the roster. His name was listed under Team 7, designated as primary sniper. His teammates were Rodriguez as team leader, Kim as spotter, and Thompson as communications specialist. Rodriguez approached him as the crowd dispersed. Looks like we're working together, he said, his tone neutral but not unfriendly. I know we got off to a rough start, but out there, we're brothers. Your success is my success. I understand, Marcus replied. What do you need from me? Be ready for anything. These scenarios are designed to push us beyond our limits. They'll test not just our shooting, but our decision-making under extreme stress. Team 7 spent the afternoon reviewing their mission brief in a secure planning room. Their objective was to infiltrate a mock enemy compound, gather intelligence on weapon caches, and eliminate high-value targets while avoiding civilian casualties. The exercise would take place over 48 hours in a section of desert that had been constructed to resemble a Middle Eastern village. The targets will be played by instructors wearing special gear that registers hits, Rodriguez explained, studying satellite photos of their area of operations. But they'll be using simulated return fire that can wound or kill us if we make mistakes. Medical evacuation means mission failure. Kim leaned over the photos, pointing to various positions. Elevated positions here, and here give us good overwatch of the main compound. But they're obvious spots, so they'll probably be watched. Thompson nodded toward his communications equipment. I'll maintain contact with command, but radio discipline is critical. Too much chatter gives away our position. Marcus studied the terrain, noting wind patterns, distances, and potential shooting positions. What's the longest shot we might need to make? Up to 1,500 meters, Rodriguez answered. Some targets will only be exposed for seconds. No do-overs, no second chances. At dawn the next day, Team 7 moved out into the desert in a military vehicle that dropped them 3 kilometers from their objective. From there, they would have to move on foot, navigating by compass and GPS while avoiding detection by roving patrols of instructors playing enemy forces. The desert landscape was harsh and unforgiving, with rocky outcroppings, sandy washes, and scattered vegetation providing limited concealment. Marcus carried his rifle and additional equipment, the weight substantial but manageable thanks to months of physical conditioning. As they approached their area of operations, Rodriguez signaled for a halt. Through binoculars, he studied the village below them. It was incredibly realistic, with multiple buildings, vehicles, and what appeared to be civilians going about daily activities. Remember, Rodriguez whispered, some of those civilians are instructors in disguise. Others are actual role players who are off-limits. Positive target identification is critical. Kim set up his spotting scope on a rocky outcrop that provided good visibility of the compound. I've got eyes on the target building. Multiple potential positions for shooters. Thompson established communication with their command element, confirming their position and receiving updated intelligence. Command reports increased patrol activity in our area. We need to move carefully. For the next 6 hours, the team moved systematically closer to their objectives, gathering intelligence and waiting for the right opportunities to engage targets. Marcus remained in an overwatch position while his teammates maneuvered closer to gather detailed information on weapon caches. Then, everything changed in an instant. Contact! Contact! Thompson's voice crackled through their radio. Patrol spotted Kim and Rodriguez. They're pinned down behind Building 3. Through his scope, Marcus could see muzzle flashes from multiple positions as instructors playing enemy forces engaged his teammates. Red laser beams, representing enemy fire, swept across their positions. Chun, we need suppressive fire on the eastern building. Rodriguez's voice was tight with stress. Multiple shooters, second floor, windows facing our position. Marcus swung his rifle toward the indicated building, quickly acquiring targets through his scope. At 800 meters, he could clearly see figures in the windows, their positions obvious from the simulated muzzle flashes. He controlled his breathing and fired his first shot. The target in the left window immediately signaled a hit, raising his arms to indicate he was out of the exercise. Marcus smoothly transitioned to the second target, firing again within seconds. Another hit. Outstanding. Keep it up, Rodriguez called. But more targets appeared, and the simulated enemy fire was getting closer to his teammate's position. Marcus had to work faster than he ever had before, engaging multiple targets while maintaining the precision that had become his trademark. Through his scope, he spotted a new threat, an instructor with a simulated heavy weapon setting up a position that would have a clear shot at Thompson's location. The target was partially concealed and over 1,200 meters away, but Marcus could see enough to take the shot. He adjusted for the increased distance and, crosswind, held his breath and fired. The target immediately signaled a hit, slumping over his weapon. How did you even see that guy? Kim's voice carried amazement and relief. He was behind cover from our position. The simulated firefight continued for another 20 minutes, with Marcus providing precision fire support while his teammates maneuvered to complete their mission objectives. By the time they received the ceasefire signal, Team 7 had successfully eliminated all assigned targets without taking any casualties. During the debrief, Master Sergeant Williams reviewed their performance with particular attention to Marcus's shooting. Chun, you engaged and eliminated 8 targets at ranges from 600 to 1,400 meters, with an elapsed time from first to last shot of 18 minutes. Every shot was a hit, and several of your targets were in positions that only you could see from your overwatch point. The instructor pulled up video footage from cameras that had recorded the exercise. What made this performance particularly noteworthy was your target selection. Instead of simply engaging the most obvious threats first, you prioritized based on danger to your teammates. That shows tactical thinking, not just marksmanship skill. Rodriguez nodded approvingly. Kid, I have to admit, when I first saw you, I thought they were making a mistake. But today, you saved our mission and probably our lives if this had been real. The successful completion of their first team exercise marked a turning point in Marcus's relationship with his fellow candidates. Word of his performance spread quickly through the facility, but instead of increasing resentment, it seemed to earn him genuine respect. That evening, as Team 7 planned their next mission, Thompson addressed something that had been unspoken until now. Marcus, can I ask you something personal? Sure. Why are you doing this? You're 17. You could be doing normal teenager things, preparing for college, dating, playing sports. What drives you to want this life? Marcus considered the question carefully. It was something he had thought about many times during his training. My father served 3 tours overseas, he said finally. He came home with stories about the men and women who didn't make it back, and about the ones who did make it because someone with a rifle was watching over them from a distance. He told me that precision marksmanship saves lives, not just takes them. He paused, looking out at the desert landscape that had become his proving ground. I could go to college, have a normal life. But I know I have this ability, and I feel like I have a responsibility to use it for something that matters. If I can be the person watching over others from a distance, making sure they get home to their families, then this is what I want to do with my life. Kim nodded slowly. That's a mature perspective for someone your age. Maybe. Or maybe I just had a good teacher. Their conversation was interrupted by an announcement over the facility's public address system. All candidates report to the main briefing room immediately. Priority briefing in progress. The team gathered their gear and joined the stream of candidates moving toward the central building. The atmosphere felt different, more urgent than their normal training briefings. Commander Sullivan stood at the front of the room alongside several officers Marcus hadn't seen before. Their uniforms bore insignia that suggested they were from units even more elite than the training facility's normal instructors. Gentlemen, Sullivan began, his voice carrying unusual gravity. We've received a request from a special operations unit currently deployed overseas. They need immediate augmentation from candidates with specific skill sets. Marcus felt his heart rate increase. This sounded like they were talking about real deployment, not training exercises. 3 candidates will be selected for accelerated final evaluation and immediate deployment to support ongoing operations. The selection will be based on performance during this week's exercises, psychological evaluations, and recommendations from instructors. Sullivan's gaze swept across the room, lingering momentarily on Marcus before continuing. This is voluntary. Anyone selected will have the option to decline and complete the normal training program. But for those who accept, you'll be working alongside some of the most experienced special operations personnel in our military in real-world conditions that will test everything you've learned here. The room was silent except for the quiet hum of air conditioning. Marcus could feel the weight of the moment, the realization that his childhood dreams of serving might become reality much sooner than he had ever imagined. Candidate selections will be announced tomorrow morning after final evaluations are complete. Dismissed. As the candidates filed out of the briefing room, Marcus caught Rodriguez looking at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. You thinking about it? Rodriguez asked quietly. Are you? Rodriguez nodded. Been thinking about it since I got here. But you're different, Marcus. You're 17. If you get selected and accept, there's no going back to being a normal teenager. This becomes your life. Marcus understood what Rodriguez was saying, but he also knew his answer. He had come here with a purpose, and if the opportunity presented itself to serve in the way he had always envisioned, age would not hold him back. That night, as he lay in his bunk listening to the desert wind, Marcus thought about his father and the lessons that had brought him to this point. Tomorrow might bring the chance to put those lessons to the test in ways neither of them had anticipated. He fell asleep with his father's words echoing in his mind. Precision is eternal, son. When lives depend on it, that's when you discover what you're truly made of. The final evaluation began before dawn with an unexpected twist. Instead of the structured exercises candidates had grown accustomed to, they were awakened by simulated alarms and the sound of instructors shouting commands through bullhorns. This is not a drill. All candidates report to the armory immediately. Full combat gear. Move with purpose. Marcus rolled out of his bunk, muscle memory from 2 weeks of training taking over. Around him, his bunkmates moved with similar efficiency, but he could sense the underlying tension. Everyone knew this was the final test that would determine who, if anyone, would be selected for immediate deployment. In the armory, candidates were issued weapons and ammunition, then loaded onto vehicles without explanation of their destination or mission. Marcus found himself in a truck with Rodriguez, Thompson, and Kim, along with 4 other candidates from different teams. Anyone have any idea what we're walking into? Thompson asked quietly as their vehicle bounced across rough desert terrain. Standard operating procedure for final evaluation, Rodriguez answered. No briefing, no preparation time, just reaction to developing situations. They want to see how we perform when everything we think we know gets thrown out the window. The vehicle stopped at a location Marcus didn't recognize, a section of desert that had been transformed into what looked like a war zone. Smoke drifted across the landscape, and the sound of simulated gunfire echoed from multiple directions. Master Sergeant Williams appeared at the back of their truck. Listen up. You're being inserted into an ongoing situation. Friendly forces are pinned down at 3 separate locations. Your mission is to provide precision fire support to allow their extraction. You'll be working with actual special operations personnel who will evaluate your performance under real-world conditions. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. Real special operations soldiers, not instructors playing a role. Candidates will be assigned to different positions based on tactical requirements. Williams continued. Some of you will work alone, others in pairs. Radio contact will be limited to essential communications only. Questions? No one spoke. Move out. Your transportation to assigned positions is waiting. Marcus was directed to a different vehicle from his teammates, along with 2 other candidates he recognized but hadn't worked with extensively. Their driver, a compact man in unmarked fatigues, introduced himself simply as Sergeant Miller and explained their mission during the short ride to their position. You're providing overwatch for a medical evacuation, Miller explained. Wounded friendly personnel are trapped in a compound approximately 1,200 meters from your position. Enemy forces have established positions that can interdict the evacuation route. Your job is to eliminate those positions and maintain security during the extraction. The vehicle stopped at a rocky outcrop that provided commanding views of the valley below. Through binoculars, Marcus could see the compound where the evacuation would take place, as well as several buildings and positions where enemy forces might be located. Chun, Miller called out, surprising Marcus by using his name. You're primary shooter for this position. Your reputation precedes you. As Marcus set up his rifle and studied the terrain through his scope, he realized this was different from any exercise he had experienced during training. The weight of simulated lives depending on his accuracy felt almost real, and he could sense that his performance here would be scrutinized by people who made life and death decisions in actual combat zones. Through his radio earpiece, he heard fragmented communications from other positions. Some candidates were already engaging targets, the sound of their shots echoing across the desert landscape. But, at his position, the situation remained calm, almost too calm. Contact, Miller announced quietly, studying the area through his own optics. Movement in Building 7, second floor, eastern window. Sniper position being established. Marcus swung his rifle toward the indicated building, scanning through his scope until he spotted the target. At 1,400 meters, he could barely make out the figure of someone positioning what appeared to be a rifle in the window. The shot would be challenging, requiring precise calculation of wind and elevation. Wind from the northwest, approximately 10 miles per hour, Miller reported, acting as his spotter. Temperature rising, expect slight thermal updraft. Marcus made his adjustments, controlled his breathing, and waited for the perfect moment. The target was partially concealed, offering only a small window of opportunity. When the figure moved slightly, exposing more of his profile, Marcus fired. Through his scope, he watched the target immediately signal a hit, falling back from the window position. Good shot, Miller said simply. Stand by for more targets. Over the next 30 minutes, Marcus engaged 7 different positions, each presenting unique challenges of distance, concealment, and timing. With each shot, he felt more confident in his ability to perform under the pressure of real-world conditions. Then, the radio crackled with urgent traffic. All positions, be advised, medical evacuation is beginning. Maintain overwatch and engage any threats to extraction aircraft. Marcus watched through his scope as a helicopter approached the compound, preparing to land and extract the simulated wounded personnel. As the aircraft descended, new targets appeared, enemy forces attempting to engage the vulnerable helicopter with anti-aircraft weapons. Multiple targets, Miller called out. Building 3, rooftop, crew-served weapon being positioned. Priority target. The shot was over 1,500 meters, at the extreme range of Marcus's rifle. The target was partially hidden behind rooftop structures, and the helicopter's rotor wash was creating unpredictable wind patterns. It was the most challenging shot he had ever attempted. Marcus adjusted his scope, calculated wind and distance, and tried to account for the turbulent air created by the helicopter. He held his breath and squeezed the trigger. The shot was perfect. The target immediately signaled elimination, and the simulated anti-aircraft weapon was neutralized. Outstanding, Miller's voice carried genuine admiration. That was a hell of a shot under difficult conditions. As the exercise concluded and the helicopter successfully completed its extraction, Marcus felt a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. He had performed well under the most challenging conditions he had ever faced, working alongside experienced soldiers who held him to the same standards they would expect from seasoned professionals. During the ride back to the main facility, Miller engaged Marcus in conversation that felt more like an interview than casual discussion. "How long have you been shooting?" Miller asked. "Seriously, about 4 years. Casually since I was 12. Military family. My father was a Marine sniper instructor." Miller nodded thoughtfully. "Good foundation. But what I saw today wasn't just good training. You have instincts that can't be taught. When that helicopter created wind turbulence, you adjusted automatically without overthinking it. That's the kind of performance that keeps people alive in the real world." That evening, all candidates assembled for what they knew would be the final briefing of their evaluation period. Commander Sullivan stood at the front of the room alongside the special operations officers who had observed the day's exercises. "Gentlemen, your performance over the past 2 weeks has been evaluated across multiple criteria," Sullivan began. "Technical skill, adaptability, teamwork, and performance under pressure. Based on these evaluations, 3 candidates have been selected for immediate deployment with special operations forces currently engaged overseas." Marcus felt his heart rate increase as Sullivan continued. "The selected candidates are Rodriguez, Thompson, and Chun." The room erupted in quiet conversations as candidates congratulated or commiserated with each other. Marcus felt a mix of pride and apprehension as he processed the announcement. "Selected candidates will report for individual briefings at 2000 hours, Sullivan continued. "Deployment preparations will begin immediately for those who accept the assignment. For those not selected, you have successfully completed advanced marksmanship training and will return to your original units with commendations and recommendations for future advanced training opportunities." After the general briefing, Marcus reported to a secure conference room where he found Commander Sullivan, Master Sergeant Williams, and 2 officers he hadn't met before. One wore the uniform of a Navy SEAL. The other appeared to be Army Special Forces. "Chun, please have a seat." Sullivan gestured to a chair across from the panel of officers. The SEAL officer, whose name tag read Commander Hayes, spoke first. "Marcus, what we're about to discuss is classified. Are you prepared to hear details about a real-world mission?" "Yes, sir. My unit is currently deployed in support of operations in a desert environment similar to what you've trained in here. We've been tasked with providing overwatch and precision fire support for high-value target interdiction missions. Our unit sniper was wounded 2 weeks ago and evacuated for medical treatment." Hayes leaned forward slightly. "Your performance during evaluation has been exceptional. Not just your marksmanship, which is frankly at a level we rarely see, but your composure under pressure and ability to work effectively with experienced operators. We're offering you the opportunity to deploy with us as a temporary replacement. Marcus felt the gravity of the moment. This was what he had trained for, dreamed of, worked toward for years. But the reality of potentially entering a combat zone at 17 years old was sobering. What would my role be? Marcus asked. The Special Forces officer, Major Davis, answered. You would be integrated into a four-man team conducting reconnaissance and direct action missions. Your primary responsibility would be providing precision fire support from overwatch positions. You would be working with operators who have years of combat experience. Commander Hayes continued. I won't sugarcoat this, Marcus. This is dangerous work in a hostile environment. The people shooting at us are using real bullets, not training ammunition. Despite your age, if you accept this assignment, you'll be held to the same standards and face the same risks as any other member of the team. How long would the deployment last? Marcus asked. 90 days initially, Hayes replied, with possible extension based on mission requirements and your performance. Sullivan spoke for the first time during the briefing. Marcus, you have no obligation to accept this assignment. You've already proven yourself beyond any reasonable expectation. If you prefer to return home and pursue the normal timeline for military service, no one would question that decision. Marcus thought about his father, about the years of training that had led to this moment, about his desire to use his skills in service of something larger than himself. He also thought about the risks, about the possibility of never seeing his family again. Sir, when would I need to give you an answer? By 0800 tomorrow, Hayes replied. If you accept, you'll fly out tomorrow afternoon for additional specialized training before joining my unit in theater. That night, Marcus walked alone in the desert outside the facility, needing solitude to process the decision before him. The stars were brilliant in the clear sky, and he thought about his father's words about precision being eternal, about the responsibility that came with exceptional ability. He thought about Rodriguez and Thompson, who had also been selected and would face the same choice he was facing. He wondered what his teammates back home would think, what his father would advise, what his mother would say if she knew he was considering deploying to a combat zone at 17. But, ultimately, Marcus realized, the decision came down to the same principles that had driven him to pursue this path in the first place. He had trained for this opportunity, developed skills that could contribute to missions that mattered, and been offered the chance to serve alongside the best operators in the military. As he walked back toward the facility, Marcus knew his answer. Tomorrow morning, he would accept the assignment and take the next step in a journey that had begun with weekend target practice with his father and was about to continue in ways he had only imagined. The boy who had arrived at the training facility 2 weeks ago was about to become something else entirely, a combat-ready sniper preparing for deployment with America's most elite special operations forces. At 17 years old, Marcus Chun was about to discover what precision really meant when lives depended on it. 6 weeks later, Marcus lay prone on a rocky outcrop 1,800 meters from his target, watching the pre-dawn darkness gradually give way to the harsh light of another desert morning. The landscape was different here, more mountainous, with deeper valleys and more complex terrain than the training facilities back home. But the fundamental principles his father had taught him remained constant: patience, precision, and the unwavering focus that separated life from death in the margin of a single shot. Through his scope, he observed the compound that had been under surveillance for the past 3 days. Intelligence reports indicated it served as a weapons cache and meeting point for high-value targets that his team had been assigned to interdict. The operation that was about to unfold would be the most complex he had participated in since joining Commander Hayes' unit. Phoenix 2, this is Phoenix 1. The voice in his earpiece belonged to Master Chief Rodriguez, not his former teammate from training, but a veteran SEAL with 15 years of combat experience who had become his spotter and mentor during the deployment. Movement in Building Alpha, 2nd floor, eastern windows. Marcus adjusted his scope, scanning the indicated area until he spotted 2 figures positioning themselves near windows that overlooked the compound's main entrance. I have visual on 2 personnel, Building Alpha, 2nd floor. No weapons visible at this time. Understood. Stand by for further development. The past 6 weeks had transformed Marcus from a promising trainee into a tested combat operator. His first mission had been a relatively simple Overwatch assignment, providing security for a reconnaissance team gathering intelligence on enemy supply routes. Since then, the complexity and significance of his assignments had steadily increased as his commanders gained confidence in his abilities. This morning's mission was the culmination of weeks of preparation and intelligence gathering. 3 high-value targets were expected to meet at the compound to coordinate weapons transfers that could significantly impact ongoing operations in the region. Marcus's team was part of a larger operation designed to capture or eliminate these targets while gathering intelligence on their networks. Phoenix 2, Phoenix 1. We have confirmation of primary targets entering the compound. 3 individuals, consistent with intelligence descriptions. Prepare for possible engagement. Marcus felt the familiar calm that always descended when an operation transitioned from planning to execution. His breathing steadied, his heart rate slowed, and his focus narrowed to the precise adjustments needed for shots at this extreme range. Through his scope, he could see figures moving through the compound, some wearing civilian clothing, others in military-style gear. Positive identification would be critical. Rules of engagement were strict, and civilians in the area had to be protected at all costs. Phoenix 2, I have positive identification on Target Alpha, Rodriguez reported. Building Alpha, first floor, entering through main entrance. Tall individual, dark clothing, matches photographic intelligence. Marcus tracked the figure through his scope as the man moved through the compound. At this distance, facial features were difficult to distinguish, but the target's height, build, and movement patterns matched the briefing materials they had studied extensively. Phoenix 1, Phoenix 2 has visual confirmation on Target Alpha. Clear shot available. Range 1,820 meters. Wind from the northwest at 12 miles per hour. Standby, Phoenix 2. Confirm no civilians in potential engagement zone. Marcus carefully scanned the entire area around his target, looking for any indication of non-combatants who could be endangered by his shot. The training he had received during his accelerated preparation had emphasized this responsibility above all others. The obligation to ensure that precision served to protect innocent lives, not endanger them. Phoenix 1, engagement zone is clear. No civilians visible in target area. Phoenix 2, you are cleared to engage Target Alpha on my command. Stand by. Marcus made final adjustments to his scope, accounting for the morning temperature, wind speed, and the slight upward angle of his shot. At nearly 1,900 meters, this would be the longest shot he had ever attempted in a combat situation. The margin for error was essentially 0. Phoenix 2, execute, execute, execute. Marcus controlled his breathing, allowed his heartbeat to slow, and gently squeezed the trigger. The rifle recoiled against his shoulder, and he immediately chambered another round while maintaining his scope picture. Through the lens, he watched his target drop immediately. The shot had been perfect, center mass, eliminating the threat instantly. Target Alpha down, Rodriguez confirmed. Excellent shot, Phoenix 2. But the mission was far from over. As soon as the first shot was fired, the compound erupted into activity. Figures began moving rapidly between buildings, some taking defensive positions, others apparently attempting to flee. Phoenix 2, multiple targets of opportunity, Building Bravo, rooftop positions. Enemy forces establishing fighting positions with crew-served weapons. Marcus swung his rifle toward the indicated building, quickly acquiring targets through his scope. At this range, he could engage multiple positions faster than any crew-served weapon could be effectively deployed against his concealed position. His second shot eliminated a figure attempting to position what appeared to be a heavy machine gun. His third took down another individual who was directing defensive movements from an exposed rooftop position. Phoenix 1, Phoenix 2. Building Bravo rooftop positions neutralized. Scanning for additional threats. The radio crackled with reports from other elements of the operation. Ground teams were approaching the compound from multiple directions, while aircraft provided additional overwatch and prepared to extract the assault forces once their mission was complete. Phoenix 2. We have visual on Target Bravo attempting to escape via vehicle from the southern exit. Black sedan, moving fast toward the access road. Marcus tracked the vehicle through his scope as it accelerated away from the compound. The shot would be extremely challenging. A moving target at long range, traveling at high speed over uneven terrain. But intelligence indicated that Target Bravo possessed information critical to disrupting future enemy operations. Phoenix 1, I have the vehicle in sight. Range approximately 1,600 meters and increasing. Recommend engagement before target moves out of effective range. Phoenix 2, you are cleared to engage. Take the shot. Marcus led the moving vehicle, calculating speed and trajectory while accounting for the bouncing motion caused by rough terrain. He exhaled slowly and fired. The shot struck the vehicle's front tire, causing it to swerve violently and crash into a rocky embankment. Through his scope, Marcus watched as the occupants stumbled out of the disabled vehicle, one of them matching the description of Target Bravo. Vehicle disabled. Target Bravo on foot, moving toward grid reference 234 to 567. Good shooting, Phoenix 2. Ground teams are moving to intercept. As the immediate action phase of the mission concluded, Marcus maintained his overwatch position while ground teams secured the compound and captured the remaining targets. Through his scope, he watched as his teammates moved efficiently through the buildings, gathering intelligence and ensuring the area was safe for the extraction phase. Phoenix 2, Phoenix 1. Mission successful. All primary objectives achieved. Prepare for extraction to Rally Point Charlie. Marcus began the careful process of packing his equipment and preparing to move from his position. As he secured his rifle and gathered his gear, he reflected on how far he had come from those weekend shooting sessions with his father. 6 weeks of combat operations had taught him lessons that no training facility could replicate. He had learned to make life and death decisions in seconds, to maintain precision under the stress of people shooting back, and to work seamlessly with operators whose experience far exceeded his own. The extraction went smoothly, with Marcus and Rodriguez reaching their rally point without incident. As they waited for transportation back to their forward operating base, Rodriguez offered an assessment that carried significant weight coming from such an experienced operator. Kid, in 6 weeks you've participated in 7 major operations and made shots that operators with years of experience would struggle with. But more than that, you've shown judgment and composure that usually takes years to develop. Marcus appreciated the compliment, but his thoughts were already turning to the intelligence reports that suggested future operations would be even more challenging. What's next? Marcus asked. Rodriguez smiled. That's classified until we get back to base. But I will tell you that the brass has been paying attention to your performance. There are opportunities coming up that could define the next phase of your career. During the helicopter ride back to their base, Marcus looked down at the desert landscape that had become his proving ground. In 6 weeks, he had evolved from a teenage trainee into a combat-tested sniper whose skills were being relied upon by some of the military's most elite units. Back at the base, as he cleaned his rifle and prepared his after-action report, Marcus thought about a conversation he had had with his father during his last phone call home. His father had asked him what he had learned that couldn't be taught in training. The answer, Marcus realized, was that precision in combat wasn't just about marksmanship. It was about making the right decision at the right moment, protecting the people who depended on you, and accepting the responsibility that came with being trusted with such lethal capability. 2 days later, Marcus received notification that his deployment was being extended for another 90 days, and that he was being recommended for specialized training with an even more elite unit. The teenage sniper who had arrived in theater with untested skills was now being recognized as a valuable asset in operations that most soldiers would never even know existed. That evening, as he wrote a letter to his father, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought him to this point. He thought about the weekend shooting sessions that had started it all, the training facility where he had first proven himself against experienced operators, and the combat missions that had forged him into someone he barely recognized from just months before. In the letter, he wrote about the responsibility he felt to use his abilities in service of something larger than himself, about the satisfaction that came from knowing his precision could protect others, and about his gratitude for the foundation his father had provided. But he also wrote about the weight of the decisions he made through his scope, about the constant awareness that his actions had consequences that extended far beyond the moment of a trigger squeeze, and about his commitment to never take lightly the trust that had been placed in him. As he sealed the letter, Marcus looked out at the desert night sky. Tomorrow would bring new missions, new challenges, and new opportunities to prove that age was just a number when precision and dedication were applied in service of principles worth fighting for. The 17-year-old who had once dreamed of following in his father's footsteps had exceeded those dreams in ways neither of them could have imagined. Marcus Chun had become exactly what his father had hoped, a precision marksman whose skills served to protect others, and whose character ensured those skills would always be used with wisdom and restraint. In the distance, he could hear the sound of aircraft returning from other missions, carrying other operators who had spent their day in service of the same principles that drove him. Tomorrow, he would join them again, carrying forward the legacy of precision his father had begun, and adding his own chapter to the story of those who served in the shadows, protecting others with skills few could match, and fewer still could be trusted to use properly. The whispers had been right. At 17, he was young. But in the desert crucible where precision meant everything, Marcus Chun had proven that age was no measure of capability when skill, character, and dedication converged in service of something greater than oneself.